somebody who's going to be really, 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 really important in this whole story. And his name was Shaul, right? Shaul is going to be the first king that the Jewish people ever have, right? Before that, there was a guy named Shmuel, right? Shmuel is the prophet, but Shaul is going to be a king. And remember, was Shaul, who remembers, was Shaul very tall or very short? He was really tall, right? Shaul was really, really tall. He was this really big guy. And he, one day, was just trying to find some lost donkeys that he had. And all of a sudden, while he was trying to deal with his lost donkeys, all of a sudden, he ended up being the king. All of a sudden, he became the king, and he did not expect that. So now, she is the king. Shmuel took him onto a roof. And remember, who remembers, what did Shmuel put on Shaul's head to make him the king? Oil, right? Put a little bit of oil on his head to make him the king. So now he's the king. But here's the thing. He's the king, but nobody knows about it yet. So right after that, this is what happens. Shmuel tells Shaul, okay, you're going to leave right now, and you're going to go home. You're going to meet a couple of people near a place called Kever Rachel. They're going to tell you where your donkeys went. And don't worry, your family's not worried about you anymore. They know the donkeys got home safely, and they just want you back home. So you're going to go from there. You're going to go to another place, and then another place, and you're going to get some bread. And after all of that, this amazing thing is going to happen to you, which is this amazing thing is going to happen. And the amazing thing is that you will start to prophesy. Do you remember what that means, to prophesy?
To be a prophet?
Mm-hmm. And it means to kind of talk to Hashem. Now, we don't know exactly what that looked like, but it seemed like if a person was prophesying, they looked kind of weird. Like they looked maybe a little bit scary even, but they acted in a way that was different from everybody else. So Shmuel said, after all of this, you're going to go to this place and you're going to start prophesying, and people are going to see you, and then you're going to go home. And that's what's going to happen. So that's what happened. Shaul did all those things. He went, he met the people, he got the bread, he started prophesying, and then he went home. And when he got home, his father was like, hey, did anything special happen to you? Did anything special happen to you? And he said, no, nothing particularly special happened to me. I was just out for a little while. He didn't mention that along the way, somebody made him the king of Israel. So he left a pretty big, important piece out. But again, still, nobody knows about this yet. Nobody knows that he is the king. So the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to find out that he's the king. So Shmuel decides, if I want Shaul to be the king, I have to tell everyone in a really big, really, really important way. So he gets together all of the Jewish people in one place, gets them together all in one place. And he says, all right, guys, you wanted a king. And I got you a king, and I'm going to show you exactly who the king is. So he brings together all the tribes, and they start picking lots. You know what lots are?
No.
Lots are it's a little bit like dice. It's like a kind of it's a kind of game of chance. Okay, so he brings together lots, and each tribe has a lot, and he picks the one from Shaul's tribe. That's the tribe of Binyamin. So they know, okay, 11 of the tribes, you guys don't have the king. The tribe is going to come from this one little tribe. And then he took all the people from Binyamin. They have to figure out whose family is from Binyamin. So this would be like, let's say, Shmuel took all the people in your city and said to them, okay, somebody in your city is the king. Let's figure out who it is. Well, let's see. We're going to pick first the neighborhood that the king lives in. And then once we've picked the neighborhood that the king lives in, we're going to figure out the street that the king lives on. And then once we figure out the street that the king lives on, we're going to figure out which house the king lives in. So that's basically what they did. So first, Shmuel figured out which Shevet they were from, which tribe, and he figured out it was from Binyamin. And after he figured out it was from Shevet Binyamin, he figured out that it was in one of the families in Shevet Binyamin.
Wait, but shush, you listen.
And then inside of that tribe, inside of that family, he showed them that it was from the family of a person named Kish. So Shmuel was like, okay, the king is in this tribe. is in this family from this one tribe. And he is, and then he was kind of going to have like a big reveal and be like, okay, here's the king. But when they finally looked for Shaul, they couldn't find him. And they're like, wait a minute.
I know.
The whole thing was about picking out where the king was, but we don't know where the king is. So they started looking for him, and they finally found him. You know where they found him? He was hiding. He was hiding inside some luggage. Why do you think he was hiding?
Because he was scared to become king and he was going to be standing in front of thousands of people.
That makes sense to me. He was probably really, really scared.
Why would he hide in someone's luggage? They would find him when they opened up his luggage.
Well, they did find him, but it took them a while, right? But it seemed like he maybe didn't exactly want to be the king.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, well, we finally found you. I guess you're the king now. Shmuel says that you're going to be a good king, and we trust him. So I guess you're going to be the king. So that's what they did. They took him out of the luggage. And when they saw, as soon as like he was, he was in the luggage, he was like really cramped up. As soon as he got out of the luggage, he stood up and they saw he was like, whoa, this guy is really, really tall. He's the tallest person here. And Shmuel said to them, all right, guys, you wanted a king? This is your king. There's no one else like him. He's your king. And then everyone said, Yehi HaMelech, long live the king. And so finally, Shmuel is going to be the king. But secretly, even though everyone said that he was supposed to be the king, a bunch of people started whispering. They were like, wait a minute, this guy's the king?
Oh, yeah, because they wanted to.
Why should he be the king? What makes him special? Why do they pick him to be the king? Why not somebody else? So even though he was the king, a lot of people didn't actually follow him. A lot of people didn't really trust him. So if people wanted to trust him, Shmuel needed to do something to make them trust him. Now, okay. Do you think? Now I have a question for you. If you don't know the story yet, do you think Shaul is going to be a good king?
No, I don't. I know.
What do you think?
Maybe.
Why don't you go back to the couch? You can have some chest.
No, he's not. He's not. Maybe, but
You don't think? Who thinks he's not? If you think he's not going to be a good king, tell me why you think he's not going to be a good king.
Are you counting?
Why did you?
Yeah. What do you think? Why isn't he going to be a good king?
I don't understand why you did that.
No reason really, but also
Now what about this guy?
he
pretty
kind of
boring.
is different from other people, which means he might
Oh, yeah,
get
then they can
rebellion
It's a pawn for
hit against
Oh
him
yeah,
because
that's what's going to happen next.
people who have different brains and bodies tend to get bullied a little, and also even hurt.
He'll take you, but he'll take you.
Which is why people autism suffer from bullying.
Would you resign or keep going? I say
Great.
keep going.
There's no room for me to talk.
Yeah.
And Shaul,
He wants to
because
resign.
he was
He knows we're gonna win.
Yeah, I don't. He made a lot of bad moves. Oh, CP one.
All right. Can I ask if people are having conversations in the background, if they can just mute themselves?
Yeah.
I don't want to mute everybody, but if you're having a conversation in the background, just mute yourself. Thank you.
This is just a pawn.
All right.
Crazy.
Here's the next
he
thing.
wouldn't be
Oh,
a
yeah.
good because he doesn't really know how to be a king. He only has oil on his head.
That is such a good point, right? If you want to be a king, if you want to be a leader, you probably have to train to be a leader. What do you think you have to know? What are some important things to know if you want to be a king?
You want to get rid of this one because then you can get a make a check.
What do you think? What do you think? Maybe you. What do you think? Well, I know one thing that maybe you have to know. You know, one of the mitzvahs in the Torah is that if you're the king, you have to have a Sefer Torah that you carry around with you all the time. Now, why do you think a king has to carry around a Sefer Torah with them all the time?
What's a Sefer Torah?
Like a Torah scroll.
Mhm.
Maybe because one of the things you have to do when you're the king is you have to remember all of the rules, right? You're supposed to follow Hashem. You're supposed to do all the things that Torah says you're supposed to do. It's really, really important because you have so much power. You have to do all the right things. So you have to do that. Maybe you also have to know how to tell people what to do, how to make sure that people don't fight who are inside your palace. There's all kinds of things you need to know how to do if you're the king. And you know what? Shaul didn't know how to do any of that. He was not ready to be king. But we're going to see that the next thing he does is he's about to do something which is going to make all of the Jewish people believe that he is actually a really, really, really good king. That's what's about to happen.
Your microphone just had an error.
What?
Your microphone just had a stuttering. Just
All right.
telling you.
So anybody want to learn the next part of the story? Okay, should we learn the next part of the story?
Carry a Torah all around because he would make.
Yep.
All right. All right, I'm gonna mute everybody for a second because I'm hearing a lot of background noise. All right. So this is what happens next. In the next part of the story, something really terrible seems like it's going to happen.
Okay.
And something really, really terrible seems like it's going to happen. But Shaul, at the very last second, saves the day. Now, this is the terrible thing. Should I tell you what it is? Okay. There's a bad guy who comes into the story. His name is Nachash. Now, who knows what a Nachash is? A snake, right? So a snake, right? And does anybody else remember a story in the Torah where there's a snake doing something terrible?
Yeah.
Make it so you can talk.
When he made 2 people eat the fruit of good and evil.
Right? One of the very first stories in the whole Torah is about a snake making Adam and Chava eat the fruit from the tree, right? So Nachash is probably not going to be a good guy.
Sometimes smarter. It also
Okay, so that's Nachash. Now Nachash decides that he wants to attack one of the cities inside of the Jewish people. He decides that he wants to attack a city called Yavesh Gilad. And he says to them, and the people of Yavesh Gilad are like, Nachash, please don't attack us. Please don't attack us. We will do anything you want. Just please don't attack our city. We're begging you. And Nachash says to them, well, okay, I don't have to attack you, but only if you do one thing. And they say, please, we'll do anything you want. And he says to them, okay, this is what you have to do. Every single one of you, and this is gonna be a little bit gross, guys, okay? Just to be prepared.
I know.
Every single one of you has to poke out your right eye. Is that gross? That's really gross, right? Each and every one of you has to do that. And if you do that, then I will not bother you and I'll leave you alone. So do you think that people in Yavesh Gilad, do you think they wanted to do that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Oh.
They were really scared, right? Because they were like, what are our choices? We either let him attack our city or we have to poke out our eyes. That's the worst decision we could ever have to make. Please, somebody help us. Help us. Who can possibly help us? Who do you think is going to come and help them? Shaul, right?
Said Shaul.
Shaul is going to come and help them, right? So this is what happens. The people of Gilad, the leaders of the city say, okay, how about this? Nachash, give us 7 days to think about it. This is a really hard decision. Just give us 7 days to see if someone can help us. And if no one comes to help us, then we'll do what you want.
Okay.
So messengers, they ride out really, really fast from the city of Yavesh Gilad to everywhere all around Israel to see someone, please help us. And finally, they get to Shaul. And when they get to Shaul, everyone around Shaul starts crying. You're like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? This is terrible. No one can save them. But Shaul's like, I know what we can do. And this is what he does. This is also going to be a little bit weird. He takes an ox. You know what an ox is?
Yeah.
Okay. He takes an ox and he cuts it into pieces. He takes an ox and he cuts it into a whole bunch of pieces. And then he takes each piece and sends it to a different part of the Jewish people. And he says to them, basically, he threatens them. He says, if you do not help me defeat Nachash, then terrible things are going to happen to you. And all the people in Israel, what do you think they felt when they got that little piece of ox?
Grossed out.
They're probably really grossed out, right? And they were also kind of scared. They're like, this guy, we better do what he wants. If we don't do what he wants, maybe we'll be in trouble. So they all send all of their soldiers, all the people who can fight, they all send them to Shaul. They all send them to work with Shaul and to help him. So finally, Shaul gets together a whole bunch of people. He gets 300,000 people. That's like a really big army. Even today, 300,000 people, that's like a huge army, right?
Yeah, huge. Unless you count the person with 150,000 in history.
This is more. This is twice that amount. Okay, so he brings them all together.
Wait,
Now the people. Now Nachash doesn't know about this yet. Nachash doesn't know about this yet.
5,450.
And Nachash says to them,
Nachash is the
"Okay, are you ready to surrender to me? Are you ready to have your eyes poked out?" And they're like, how about this? Tomorrow, I think we're going to be saved. And so Shaul's messengers go to the people of Yavesh Gilad and say to them, we heard your message and we are going to save you. Tomorrow, wait for us. Tomorrow morning, when the sun gets really hot, like in the middle of the day, you know, like around in the summer around noon, it's really, really, really hot outside. At that point, at that part of the day, in the middle of the day, when the sun's really high overhead, we are going to come in and we are going to save you. And when the people of Yavesh Gilad heard that, what do you think they felt?
They, the people of
really, really good.
Nachash
They
said he
were,
was gonna
were like, oh, thank
he
goodness.
That to the king.
Okay,
You say that to the
so
banker.
relieved that someone was going
I
to save
didn't
them.
follow. I'm not sure.
Okay, so the next day, Shaul divides up all the people, all the army into 3 groups. And in the morning, they start going into Nachash's army, where his army is sitting, waiting to attack. And before that they can attack, when the sun is really, really hot, they strike. And they strike Nachash and his army, and they destroy the whole army, and they save the day. And now let me ask you a question. Now do you think everyone wants Shaul to be the king?
Yeah.
Right, now they're like, oh, I get it. This guy, he can protect us. He can save us. And no one else could get all the Jewish people to come together, but Shaul could do it. He looks like he would be a great king for us. And then they start saying, wait a minute, what about those people who said Shaul shouldn't be the king? Maybe we should put them to death. Maybe we should put them to death for not listening to Shaul, for not believing in him. And Shaul was like, nope, forget about it. It's not their fault. From now on, I'm going to be the king. We're going to win all our fights, and let's go together. And all of you decide that I will be the king together. And so they all go to a place called Gilgal, and they all the Jewish people, not just Shmuel this time, but the whole Jewish people come together, and they say, Shaul, you are our king. We want you to be our king. Now, the next thing that happens to Shaul is not going to be so great. But I got to tell you that the people of Yavesh Gilad, for the rest of Shaul's life, were thankful to him because he saved their city.
He saved that
And
city.
even after Shaul died, even a long time later after Shaul died, they were still thankful that Shaul helped them. And they actually wanted him to be buried there because they wanted to be close to him because he saved them. So they were really, 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 really thankful to him. Okay? Should I tell you one more story?
Yes,
Okay, I'm gonna tell you one more small story, okay? This is just the beginning of the story. Now, Shaul is not gonna be the king forever. It actually says, you know how long Shaul was the king? 2 years. That's it.
2 years?
2 years.
He only lived for 2 years.
He lived for a lot longer, but he was only the king for 2 years. Okay?
You
And
mean
So
2
after
years.
Shaul, it was.
No, Daniel's 2 years old.
Now, Shaul is only the king for 2 years. And there's a couple of explanations in the story for why Shaul is only the king for 2 years. Now, one explanation we're going to get to a little bit later. It's a very complicated explanation. But the first explanation we're going to learn
Yay.
about now. So this is
Yay.
what happens. The Plishtim, remember the Plishtim, the bad guys who stole the Aron? They come back and they start to attack Shaul and his army. Okay? And so Shaul and his army, they start fighting back. Some of them hide. And Shmuel tells Shaul, Shaul, don't go anywhere. Wait for me. I'm going to come back. I'm going to help you, but you have to wait for me. All I'm asking you to do is wait for me before you do anything else. And so Shaul,
someone probably either snuck up behind in the castle and killed them while Shaul, or either when he was traveling, someone killed him.
we're going to find out. I think
Either
you
one.
might know the story already, but we're going to find out. Okay. So Shaul starts waiting for Shmuel. He's like, okay, I'm going to wait 1 day and 2 days and 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. And Shaul, every single day, he gets more and more impatient. He's like, where is Shmuel? Where is Shmuel? Where is Shmuel? I've been waiting for Shmuel this whole time. And finally, he decides that he is tired of waiting and he wants to move and start doing things to win the war, like offering sacrifices to Hashem. Now, does anybody else remember, this is a hard question maybe, does anybody else remember a story where there are some people who are supposed to wait and then they get really impatient and they don't wait and then they get in big trouble for not waiting?
Oh, I know.
What?
Who knows that story?
You remember with the golden calf?
We learned
Yeah.
that story a few weeks ago
Yeah.
in
Yeah, the
Torah.
Golden calf story.
That's right, the golden calf, right?
calf.
So it's a little bit like the golden calf, right? It's a little bit like that. Okay?
Not really my good.
So he made a giant idol and he started praying to it.
Mad because they made a calf and worshipped it, but that
Exactly.
was supposed to be him.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like that story. So
It's mostly.
Shaul is supposed to be waiting, and then he gets impatient and he doesn't wait, and then he starts offering sacrifices. And just as he's offering sacrifices, right after he finishes offering the first sacrifices, Shmuel shows up and he's like, Shaul, what are you doing? You're supposed to be waiting for me. And Shaul's like, but I didn't know if you were going to come. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing.
Good.
And Shmuel's like, Shaul, this is a really big problem. Because you didn't wait for me, you do not get to be the king anymore. And somebody else is going to be king instead of you. Now, we're going to find out that Shaul doesn't get replaced for a little while, but pretty soon Shaul is going to get replaced. Okay? Now, think about it like this, like Shaul, like he goes from low to high and low, right? At the beginning of the story, he's just this simple guy, and all he's doing is just making sure that his donkeys don't get stolen. And then all of a sudden, he's the king, and he saves a whole city, and everyone's so proud, and everyone's so glad that he's the king. And then all of a sudden, right after that, he goes back to being in trouble again. So Shaul, like, he gets to be really important for like a little period of time, but then right after that, he goes back to being in trouble again. And we're going to find out that Shaul goes from being like the good guy in the story to being a guy who makes some pretty bad decisions. But we're not going to be able to do that part this week, so we will learn about that on Tuesday. So I am so glad that I got to learn with you guys this week. I hope that all of you have a wonderful Shabbat and a restful Shabbat, and I hope to see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Tomorrow.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Abba.